Good morning on behalf of SEPS. Welcome for this special roundtable looking at the small modular reactors. Fantastic that we can have this meeting. And interesting to have it exactly a month after we had a meeting also in this room on getting nuclear energy back on track. And of course, small modular reactors are fully part of that. And it's now we see, let's say, it's also discussed in the United States, but also advancing in Europe, as I know from Guido, who explained me this once a few weeks ago. And I wasn't aware, but then I read about it on the website of the SCR, and they explain it very well to me. It's a small modular reactor, so every word has its importance. Small, first of all, it's much smaller than a traditional nuclear facility, also in the energy it produces, from 1/3 to much less. So it's modular, which means it can be put together easier. It's modular. It's a facility which can be prefabricated and then installed. And then it's still a reactor, but a reactor where they're also looking at other ways of cooling. So it's still nuclear fission, but they're still looking at other ways of cooling, which also is being looked at in the SCR. To look at the lead-based strategy, let's say, for cooling, which is also an important element. So happy that we can be involved in this task force and that we can do it together with the Clean Energy Task Force, and that we can work on these matters, because there is as we know, let's say, from what is happening in the world around us, still again an energy crisis, and all of a sudden our energy prices have almost doubled, certainly for oil. Cost for shipping gas has also become extremely expensive in a matter of 2 weeks. So nuclear is always somewhere on the back as the stable, normally stable, reliable source of energy, certainly in many European countries. So happy to have this discussion and to take our debate from overall nuclear energy forward to very specific debate on small modular reactors, and also the investment which is required, because what I read about is that we're talking about this, but I think many countries are working on it, but there is still not one which is operational, if I remember correctly, and that the planning is for the period 2030, 2035, let's say, to have the first SMRs operational. But of course, it's a matter of investments, it's a matter also of standards which are being used, it's a matter of cooperation between European countries and also at the global level. And that, I think, is one of the subjects which we will be discussing today. So again, as I said, let's say we at SEPS have a big energy program which we had since many years, in which also Andries is involved. Andries is a member of our board. But we have been following everything related to energy policies for, I think, for the last more than 20 years, because it remains an important thing as we see today. And happy that we have this cooperation with the Clean Air Task Force. And I pass the floor to Alicia to say a few introductory words, and then we can kick it off. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you everyone to join us this morning. It's a very timely discussion in Brussels. We've seen much more interest for nuclear this recent year, and with the recent publication of the SMR strategy, it is a good time to discuss what is on the table and how we're going to make this strategy something more tangible happening in practice. So a very quick word on Clean Air Task Force. We are an international climate NGO, and we are very much a science-based organization. So we're looking at what is needed to decarbonize and how we can achieve this different kind of technology deployment. Because of that, and because this technology neutral approach that we have been looking at nuclear now for several years and the role that they can play in the decarbonization pathway in Europe and in other parts of the world. So most of CATF team are actually scientists. I am not, but my scientist colleague will talk later on. And we are very much trying to provide data and scientific input in the discussion to make sure that the policy debate remain fact-based. So that is very quickly on CATF. Now, on nuclear, as I said, we've seen kind of a renaissance of nuclear in the last year in Brussels, which makes a lot of sense when we're looking at the current context and the current challenge that the EU is facing, when we have to decarbonize, when we have to find a new source that ensure energy security, when we are in a very complex geopolitical world, and when we need new source of clean electricity and power for our industry. And nuclear can be a big part of that discussion. So that is nuclear in general, but we also see more and more interest on SMR. As was mentioned, SMR, by what it is, has specific advantage in the sense that the technological and financial risk can be lower, and because it can be smaller, it can be used in a different way and create new use opportunities. So we are really happy to see that the European Commission has been paying more and more attention to SMR, as well as other institutions like the Parliament and the Council, and that SMR have been very high in the agenda in Brussels. Now, when we look at the strategy, we see that there are different elements in it. We see like element on licensing and regulation, element on finance, on cooperation, both cross-country within the EU and international. So making that strategy a reality is not going to be easy. It is a very positive step that it has happened so that we can have a comprehensive view on how we're going to achieve deployment of SMR in the EU. But now we need to look at how we're going to make that strategy something happening in reality. And on this word, I'm going to leave the floor to the first discussions.
Good morning, everybody. So my name is Andris Piebalgs. I am a member of the board of the CEPS, and I have the honor to moderate keynote speech. That is a new form, so we are very happy that Matej Tonin, member of the European Parliament, agreed on such a type of form. Usually keynotes are long speeches, sometimes better, sometimes worse, but this time we are trying to go with the questions and answers. Matej Tonin is a Slovenian politician. He has been Deputy Prime Minister, Minister of Defense, and now he serves in the European Parliament. That is a new career in front, so for European politician, but you never move out of in Europe, out of your national politics as well. But this time we will try to focus very much on the European policy. And 7 days ago, Commission published something that definitely draw a lot of attention. It's strategy for small modular reactors. So far, I would say definitely welcome its courageous step. But when you read this, it is very cautious, could, should, etc. So my first challenge to Matej is how you see these small modular reactors for competitiveness and for Europe in general. What is your political understanding based on your experiences?
Andris, thank you very much for this introduction. As you said, I'm in a political exile here in Brussels, but I'm enjoying very much, especially focusing on energy and on nuclear. As a disclaimer, I have to tell you in advance that I'm a big fan of nuclear because I see that this is future, and I try to do what I can as a member of the European Parliament to push this even further. With the keynote speeches, it's like this, that sometimes politicians are pretending that they know a lot, but in the end, in this whole, you know much more than me. That's why I won't pretending how much I know, but I just can present my political view, how the things are right now in the European Parliament, how are the things between the political groups, and how it was in the past. I will never forget, we were discussing this down there with the tea, when I became the leader of the third biggest party in Slovenia, Slovenian Christian Democrats, in 2018. And we were preparing the election program. And we had a fierceful discussion on nuclear, because in Slovenia we have a nuclear power plant in Krško. And what would be our political vision? Are we in favor of a second block? Are we against, and so on? So I was at that time pro-nuclear, and I said, of course, we need this, and Slovenian future needs nuclear energy, and we have to put it into the program. We did it with a tiny majority, but we did it. And then we had political debates, and in these political debates I was, of course, advocate of a nuclear power, and I will never forget the PR advisors who, after the debates, approached to me and they said, Matej, you are destroying our prospects. I said, why? Because you are so vocal on nuclear. don't you know that this is very unpopular in the country? So you should you should debate this in different ways. So this was in 2018, and at that time in the European Union it was almost a blasphemy to talk about the nuclear. So you had political stars who were saying and advocating that we have to shut down the nuclears. And when we are now, a long story short, now the president of the Commission, Madame Ursula von der Leyen, is saying that shutdown of nuclear power plants was a mistake. And even Commissioner Jorgensen, who is known that he is not the committed friend of nuclear, every time when he comes to the European Parliament, together with the President von der Leyen, they are always saying that future, or the energy future for Europe, is a mix of renewables and nuclear. So I think that we made a tremendous step forward. I would like to see positive things from the point when it was almost a blasphemy to talk about the nuclear, that we put this in the previous term in a taxonomy, and now that we have a strategy on SMRs, I think that's quite an achievement. Yes, as you said, might, shall, and so on, soft language. Maybe some action is missing, but at least we are moving into the right direction. So maybe you should ask some another question that I won't be too long with that.
Because Carol in a way provoked it. Is there any difference between nuclear energy in general and SMRs? Should be treated differently from political point of view? I'm not talking about technical, yeah, that's different, but politically it is. Because that brings me to the question after, how the European Parliament will react? Because if European Parliament is supporting, it's a huge thing. If it is against, that is definitely again political challenge for the Commission and for everybody that sees the opportunities related to it. So two questions in one. Yeah. So one is, should we treat very separately, both politically? No. And second, European Parliament, how does it look like?
So, very simple answer. No, I don't think that they should be treated separately and differently. I think that we should treat nuclear issue or nuclear energy as a whole. You have different technologies, you have fission, fusion, you have SMRs, but I think if a division that something is good and something is not, I think is dangerous. So my proposal is, in political standpoint, we should treat them in a holistic way and support nuclear in different ways. What the discussions or what is the position in the European Parliament, I have to say that I'm organizing different events in the European Parliament, and I can see with the nuclear a tiny but very important difference in comparison with other events. So, for example, whenever I'm organizing events on persecuted Christians, you know, which are the most persecuted religion on the world, normally always the right side of the parliament attend such events. Or when you organize something different, the left side attends. So you can see clear political division, what is supported from one or another side. But in terms of a nuclear event, I have to say that I can see the participants from both sides of the aisle. So I have participants from the left progressive political groups, from the far right, centrist, so everybody is coming. With the exception of two, I would say, a bit hesitant groups, which are Greens and left. I'm still quite surprised that we have still some Green MEPs who are still very vocally explaining in debates that these SMRs are the big threat. And when you ask them why, they say, you know, these are a new possible targets for the terrorists. Now we have more or less big nuclear power plants who are heavily protected, security is really strong, and so on. So, but with the SMRs, you will have dispersed units, elements, and this is like the invitation for the terrorist. I have to say that I was a bit shocked, but that you will feel that's the narrative of some members of the Green Group in the European Parliament. So regarding the left, they are anyway against everything, but as a disclaimer, I'm the EPP, that you have to put this in the context. But yeah, more or less, this is the reality. But I would say right now, and what is quite promising and a positive sign, we have a big pro-nuclear majority in the European Parliament. And industry and academia should use this momentum now in the European Parliament, because so strong as now support is, was never in the past. And that's why such documents are now possible, because the Commission feels much more comfortable with such majority in the Parliament.
What could be the process in the European Parliament? Because now Commission came out very cautious, as mentioned, but they came out with strategy. So let's recognize. Now they have already discussed in Energy Council, I think yesterday. I assume it went reasonably well, so I don't expect too much. But Parliament is definitely different. So what could be the procedure in European Parliament?
Yeah, when you read, this is a communication from the Commission. So this communication doesn't automatically lead to a new legislation. That's very important to underline. But anyway, this communication will ignite different discussions in the Parliament. That's for sure a positive thing. But with my colleagues, I'm pushing for one step further, which is that in accordance with this, we should prepare so-called INI report. INI report is a report where when the Parliament, because we don't have we are co-legislators. That was one of the difficult things to understand coming from a national parliament or served 4 terms in the national parliament, when parliament and MPs can propose the bill, but here in the European Parliament it's different. So only Commission can come with the legislative proposal, but we have so-called INI reports where we can suggest Commission what would be good to put in some kind of legislation. And I think that because the majority or the attitude in the Parliament now is heading towards the right direction, Commission is a bit softer on the nuclear. I think now is the time for the INI report, and then I hope at the end of this term that we can push for some legislation. So I'm expecting fierceful debates in the Parliament, but as I said, for anything more tangible, we need to use other tools which are available in the Parliament.
So that brings me to the issue, what are the biggest obstacle for SMRs evolve in Europe? What you would say that at least should be part of the report where Commission should look, because now Commission said it's alliance, industry, plus member states. So we are careful on this. But what directions you would like to push European Commission for the Europe as a whole?
For me, that's very simple. So I would say money, licensing, and supply chain. 3 points. This would help the SMRs to become a reality. When I'm talking about the money, 200 billion, great, better than nothing. It's at least a clear political sign that there are not just words, that we are not just saying, yes, it's fancy and nice to have a nuclear power, but at least the Commission or President of the Commission proposed additional 200 million, nice, but we are all aware that this is a bit maybe not enough, that there is still a space to increase this, but this is not the point. We can always discuss, and when we will have a debate on next MMF, it will be as well a tough debate, a tough negotiations already started. There are big differences between Commission and a Parliament approach, so there will be next big battle in the Parliament. But when I'm talking about the money, I think that it should be a clear sign that public money should be like a bite, like a safeguard or something which would attract the private investors. So when we put some of our public money in such projects, we give a clear signal to our private investors, look, we believe in the technology, we believe in projects, so I think it's a good thing that you come as well. So that's one point, as I said. Then licensing, still a big mess. We will have still 27 licensing systems, then we can forget on what is the real point of SMRs, that you can produce it here and you can deploy it everywhere in the Europe, so that's a problem. And we have to, in a way, solve the problem of licensing and mutual recognition of the licensing process in the different EU countries. And the third point is supply chain. If we won't have, if we don't have experts who will work on the projects, who will operate with the system, so then everything what was in the beginning is worthless. So these 3 points, I think, are crucial to push the SMRs, and in that direction any legislative proposals should go.
And I would like to conclude with some things that in a way is accountability framework. It's definitely not correct what I'm saying, but we can say that, well, the strategy is a starting point. Actually, things happen before, it's difficult, but politically we could say on SMRs, yes, it is a starting point. So what you would say after some while, that it is success or it is not success, at least by knowledge you have now, what you would characterize as a success, because you need to reach something at some stage when you start the process.
For me, the success will be to have operational SMR in the European Union in the beginning of the next decade. So that would be very tangible success. So together with the small group of colleagues within the ITRE committee, we visited Canada, Darlington, where they have 4 nuclear power plants, and they are already building a new SMR. So of course, they are claiming that they will have in the beginning of the next early 2030. And I think if you want to be competitive in that business of SMRs, then you have to follow sooner or later. So that would be a tangible success, and everything else we will be left behind if we are still debating the next 5-6 years what to do with SMRs, and then the deployment phase will take another 10 years, so it will be too late.
Okay, so we have a very clear vision, and with this we would like to thank Matej Tonin for his keynote, and if you could join me in upload.
Well, yes, thank you very much, Matej, Andris. We are moving to the next stage of our program, so policy brief presentations, and my name is Irina Kostova. I lead the energy program here at CEPS. So I will just take a few minutes of your time to give you some observations, some remarks, what we are observing in the nuclear sector, in the nuclear industry. So at CEPS we are working on the report on the future of nuclear in the EU, and it's forthcoming in the next months. We are also planning to have a short piece, a policy brief, especially on SMRs, so to understand where we stand. And we have three main observations in these regards. So first is, well, we see that we have a lot of discussions both on the industrial side and on the energy side. So from one side, we would like to build a manufacturing industry. We need it to boost supply chain. So this is very much what the SMR strategy is aiming to do. And at the same time, on the energy side, there are very big discussions on nuclear energy as a generation source in the future, and here comes the market design, the revenue streams, and dispatching. So all these big questions we cannot ignore. Second point is that there can be noticed some piecemeal approach in policies, in regulations. So there are certain incentives for nuclear, and indeed, the situation is improving recently, but still, well, there is no coherence, no comprehensive picture what place nuclear has or will have in the future. And the third point is the nuclear industry is, of course, needs an overhaul, and speeding up construction in this sector, which has experienced a lot of difficulties over the last decades. It's a big, big homework to do, and we understand it. But also, like as a conclusion, well, if there will be no comprehensive approach from like the EU policy framework, from member states framework, member states who would like to pursue nuclear, then it will be also very difficult to judge if this is like industries that cannot deliver, or it is just like we don't have this enabling framework. So these are three general observations. Some SMR specific points. Well, in terms of technology, well, we understand that SMR technology also aims to alleviate issues that are inherent to large-scale nuclear designs. So SMRs are promised to have standardized design, mass production, scalable deployment, assembly on site. And in that regard, it will be very interesting to discuss to what extent this modularization is happening, will happen, at what pace. And in terms of timeline, it was already mentioned a few times. So now we are mainly speaking about the third generation SMRs and AMRs, like in the research and development stage. So this is like a long way, a future to go. But like practically speaking, we look into the third generation SMRs. And there are plenty of designs, around 20, if I'm not mistaken. And the selection is also a big issue, a sensitive perhaps issue, and also some questions of technological sovereignty inevitably arise. And that said, in terms of application, it will be also interesting to discuss what is expected to be the primary application for SMRs, because the understanding is that SMRs can open the market to like a wide range of customers, and who will actually benefit from them, and if speaking about the third generation SMRs. So power generation is an immediate well, application, it's obvious, but then we inevitably enter into the discussion about the energy side, like nuclear in the market design. So SMRs, can they run flexible? Can they run flexible in economic sense? So that's a big question. In terms of like, we hear a lot about the industrial decarbonization, but like my understanding is that high temperature SMRs are not there yet. Those who can be used, can be applied for hard to abate sectors. So what industries can use the current technologies, current SMRs, and at what costs? So speaking about cost, well, SMRs are currently having higher capex and even like large-scale nuclear reactors, if we understand correctly. And then they still need to figure out like their economic competitiveness relative to large-scale reactors. And the costs are still a bit unclear, unknown exactly. We are like some SMRs are under construction now worldwide, and we still don't know what will be the cost curve. And in terms of cost overruns and construction times overruns, that's also like it will be a learning curve to see to what extent this modularity can be applied without serious budget overruns. And the last point, well, private investments are said very often to be like SMRs will help to unlock private investments because they are smaller, because they are more flexible, modular. So it will be very interesting to discuss to what extent actually private actors are interested in these investments and what is missing and what is needed to boost these investments. And last but not least, supply chain. It's a key issue, and the SMR strategy is very much about this. And all in all, the supply chain, nuclear supply chain in Europe needs to be very much rebuilt, and that should be the focus of next years. With that remarks, I'm very happy to pass the floor to Malvina for her presentation and then the discussion.
Thank you, Irina. It's wonderful to co-organize this event with you guys. So my name is Malvina Kvist. I lead Nuclear Energy Programme at Clean Air Task Force, and you have heard a little bit about what do we do as an organization. But I wanted to briefly just reflect on our nuclear program. I wanted to reiterate that we are fiercely technology agnostic. We are also independently funded, meaning that there is no strings attached with the work that we do on this topic. In general, our aim is to triple nuclear capacity around the globe, but specifically in Europe, we are working on 5 pillars. I'll mention 3 of them because I think these will be kind of resonating the most with the topic of today's conversation. So first and foremost, we see that achieving alignment on technology choices will be incredibly important in Europe to move from kind of a series of demonstration projects and first of a kind to nth of a kind. We need to deploy multiple replicable projects to lower the cost and kind of get down that cost curve that Irina mentioned. Second pillar here is order books, and this is one of the methods, not only one, but one of the options to kind of help to facilitate the fleet deployment. And this is focusing on kind of bulk purchasing to help to remove the first mover disadvantage. Right now, first of a kinds carry a higher price tag and higher risk than the following units. So of course, naturally there is reluctance from private investors to carry that. So one of the ways to potentially kind of lower the blow here is to try to spread this across multiple customers and multiple units. Thirdly, there will not be any fleet deployment without that cohesive nuclear European regulatory framework that Mr. Tonin has mentioned. Right now, we have very diverse regulatory background here in the European space, and we are not talking about, of course, the harmonization. This is not something that is achievable at the short scale, but we would like to find some sort of solution, perhaps the mutual recognition that Mr. Tonin has mentioned, that could help to enable supply chains and projects to be more replicable rather than having a series of similar reactors spread around Europe. Some of these other issues as supply chains and public-private partnerships will be also, of course, very important, especially thinking about kind of the limited resources that will be a kind of recurring theme of today's conversation. We need to be using the resources that we have wisely to attract private investment. And now to take a look at the recently published strategy. Our first reflection is that it's a major accomplishment and a departure from kind of where we were just a few short years ago. From my perspective, something that I see as one of the most kind of prevailing themes are fleet deployment and collaboration. This strategy is meeting the moment of SMRs that we have currently in Europe, looking at the amount of interest, amount of momentum, the potential, but also the number of resources and the kind of the market size that we currently have, the timescales, the technologies that are available, and is trying to kind of meet all of this complexity with what we have at hand. I think the Action 8 is really encompassing a lot of that, and I'll quote here a little bit, but SMR coalitions on policy, regulatory, licensing, and economic aspects. I think these will be absolutely crucial to actually make these reactors happen. We would love to see coalitions of the willing countries that work together, because no country will be able to do it alone. That much is very clear. And looking a bit kind of beyond the strategy, I think the strategy is giving a really strong direction for progress on what kind of should be happening, but at the same time, it will be the member states and key stakeholders within member states that will be delivering majority of this. So right now is the time to kind of, apologies, here you go. Right now is the time to coalesce and bring these stakeholders together to translate the strategy into a milestone-based program that can kind of provide more information and clarity on definitive solutions for some of these challenges. And that, of course, needs to be aligned with the action plan that was released previously by the Industrial Alliance on SMRs. Secondly, the technology down selection. This is something I have been preaching for a couple of years. The sooner the better. All of the major economies that are pursuing SMRs have chosen kind of technology or set of technologies quite early, recognizing how resource intensive these ventures will be. And so spreading our precious resources thinly will just not work, especially with this timeline of early 2030s deployment. So reiterating that. Thirdly, on supply chains, I believe we'll need more concrete solutions to help to break this chicken or the egg cycle of kind of no orders, then that kind of halts investment, and that kind of keeps the capacity at where it is. We'll need some way to break out of that cycle, and I think we need to start with kind of setting out an independent, cohesive assessment of where we are currently in the industry. And then the last thing I'll mention from this list is one of the recommendations that I thought was really kind of key directional recommendation, which is to create conditions for fleet deployment. It's really important, but I think it's not trivial on how to actually execute that. Who will be creating, who will be kind of coordinating these coalitions of SMR countries that are interested in pursuing these technologies. These are questions that need to be answered relatively quickly. And then just a really quick flyover over a couple of solutions that CATF has been proposing. Don't mind the blurry figure here. It's blurry on purpose just because it contains figures that wouldn't be relevant for the European market, but we are working on updating that. But order box is something I already mentioned. It's a way to kind of have a collection of firm commitments from various buyers and to spread those first-of-a-kind costs and risk across multiple units, and to kind of help to also kind of send a clear signal to the supply chains and other stakeholders about the kind of market for this technology. Second solution I wanted to briefly discuss is a joint procurement platform for SMRs. This is something that could be organized at the EU level if there was interest in that at the European level, but it could equally work well between the member states that are interested in pursuing these technologies to help to kind of leverage collective buying power, standardized technology, and again, send a strong signal to supply chains, provide visibility of projects coming down the pipeline. And with that, I will close. I'll say if you're interested to learn more, please feel free to use this QR code to look at our website for some of the work that we have been doing. Otherwise, I'll leave you with the statement that I believe the strategy is a really strong signal in the right direction, but now we have to really get more information and more clarity on the particular solutions. And I think the biggest challenge will be to coordinate all of these member states that are interested and find a common language to agree on technologies, licensing solutions, and pooling of the resources. Thank you very much. So this will take us into the discussion part of this event. So let me welcome my panel today. I will hear from Kamil Tucek, Deputy Head of Unit of Nuclear Energy, Nuclear Waste and Decommissioning from DG Ener. We have also Domenico Rossetti di Valdebero, Deputy Head of Unit from Euratom Research from DG RTD. We have Andrei Goisea from Nuclear Europe, serving here as a member of Secretariat of the Industrial Alliance for SMRs. And last but not least, we have Łukasz Młynarkiewicz, Attorney at Law and Head of Nuclear Energy Practice at Kochański Law Firm. So we will have an opportunity for each of you to give a short opening statement for about 2 to 3 minutes. After that, we'll have a conversation. I will spend about 10 minutes discussing with each of you, asking you pre-designed questions about the SMR strategy. And after that, we'll have about 30 minutes for open conversation with the audience. So please think about the questions you might want to ask. I will highlight that this moderated part of the conversation is live streamed, but the Q&A session will be Chatham House rule, and it will not be recorded or streamed. So with that, I will pass it on to Kamil Tucek for your opening remarks.
Thank you so much, Marina, and thank you indeed for the invitation. I'm truly glad to be here. We have adopted the SMR strategy on 10th of March as a part of the broader energy package together with other initiatives. This includes the final Nuclear Illustrative Programme, the PINC, the Clean Energy Investment Strategy, and the Citizens Energy Package. And the adoption of these initiatives reflects a broader assessment of Europe's energy transition, achieving climate neutrality while also ensuring the energy security, industrial competitiveness and affordability will require a diverse portfolio of clean energy technologies. And for those member states which choose to include nuclear energy in their energy mix, small modular reactors may indeed represent one of the innovative technologies that can contribute to this transition. So as was already mentioned here, the SMRs can supply low carbon electricity and help address also such growing demand in sectors such as data centers and hydrogen production. They can also support decarbonization of energy-intensive industries, hard-to-abate sectors, by providing low carbon electricity, heat and steam for chemical manufacturing facilities such as oil refineries, maritime transport, and they can also, of course, supply heat for district heating networks. They can also serve as a platform to reinvigorate supply chain. We have been discussing it already quite a lot here. Create a new technological knowledge, skilled jobs, and a long-term export capacity. And this is also why in the strategy we are foreseeing that SMRs could become one of the EU's next major industrial development projects. Well, at the same time, of course, the strategy recognizes that the deployment of SMRs will not only depend on the technology progress, but also we need the right industrial investment and regulatory and policy conditions. So to address this, the strategy proposes 9 concrete actions, which Marina has already presented, so I will not spend too much time on those. But they can be essentially grouped into 3 areas. So we call on member states and industry, here represented by Andreas in form of the European Industry Alliance on SMRs, to focus on a limited number of most promising designs. We of course also stress the need to strengthen the European supply chains. We stress that we need to work on further developments of the industrial standards and modern manufacturing to support a fleet approach. Then on investments, it was already mentioned, we have proposed 200 million euro InvestEU guarantee top-up until 2028 for innovative nuclear technologies. But we are also highlighting opportunities under the new Scale Up Europe Fund. We also stress the importance of development and design of future IPCIs, so important projects of common European interest on innovative nuclear technologies, and also stress opportunities under the net zero acceleration release. And then lastly, on the policy and regulatory framework, we encourage simplification and speed up of export control administrative procedures. Indeed, a closer regulatory cooperation among member states, including through the SMR coalition, and also highlight the importance of the cooperation with like-minded partners. But of course, also at the same time, while ensuring that we strengthen our own industrial capabilities. So in conclusion, we already have strong assets in the nuclear field and experienced industrial base with global leadership, specifically here in the nuclear fuel cycle services. We have also very strong research and innovation base and well-established and internationally recognized safety frameworks. So indeed, we fully agree. The challenge, as we see now, is to coordinate all these capabilities effectively in a coherent and efficient way, such that we can indeed deliver first SMRs in the beginning of next decade, while at the same time, of course, also ensuring the high standards of nuclear safety, security, safeguards, and environmental protection.
Thank you very much. Fantastic. So moving on to Domenico, would you like to go next?
Yes, with pleasure, and thank you very much for the invitation. Kamil has said a lot of things. Let me just remind, when I was younger, there was a famous song, The Wind of Change, from the Scorpions. And I feel, Mr. Tonin, Andres, you mentioned that in your introduction, there has been a clear wind of change over the last 3-4 years. This is due to, obviously, the geopolitical crisis that we had, but also the perception of technological neutrality. This concept has not yet been quoted often, but we feel that technological neutrality should apply to every single technology. When I arrived in Euratom 6 years ago, I was astonished that there were no Marie Sklodowska reactions in the nuclear field. And they say, is it a mistake? There is something wrong. And then Euratom, we had to pay, to give a certain budget in order to have nuclear scientists being able to get a grant, a Marie Curie Sklodowska grant. That was just to show the wind of change. You mentioned, Camille, the SMR communication. I would also like to focus on 2 other points, the PINC, which is quite important. It was already published. Now we have the final text following the European Economic and Social Committee. But it's also good to have a kind of foresight of looking ahead, what capacities we can have with SMR, and I'm sure that we will discuss that later on. The clean energy investment is also quite important, especially for this technological neutrality. And just a few days ago, before this, I would say not nuclear package, but energy package, there was the Industrial Accelerator Act. I feel that I do not see colleagues from DG GROW, but it's important to mention, there was a big tension at EU level. Should we have genuinely built SMR, European one, or should we prefer the first deployment, including with American design, with British design, and others? And I feel that we have been quite open, saying that the first priority for the EU is to have the fastest possible deployment, whatever is the origin of the SMR, but with the Industrial Accelerator Act, we are not completely naive. That means that we want to have a certain key components of SMR being manufactured in Europe. This is quite important. Let me just say one word about research and innovation. That's where I'm coming from in DG Research. We have made, let's say, an ambitious but realistic proposal for Euratom in the next MFF. We have proposed to double the budget for both fission and fusion. Last week in Paris, Bernard Salat told me from SNETP, the Sustainable Nuclear Energy Technology Platform, Domenico, you should have multiplied by 10 the budget. And they say, Bernard, in such case, I would invite you to the council to discuss. We would lose some credibility. Then I feel that our proposal is the doubling. That means we will go from 50 million euro per year to 100 million euro per year in fission-related research. It's not enormous. Matej, you mentioned the budget, even 200 million. When you speak in million in nuclear, you are a poor man. You should speak in billions if you want to be serious. Nevertheless, we think that there are two main important points. One is the leverage effect. When we have this 200 million euro from the Innovation Fund, first we open a door which was closed until now. Innovation Fund, there were no nuclear. Then this is already important. And to have a guarantee fund, because that's what will happen in de facto, this should help or at least support private actors that want to invest in SMRs in particular. Then we have doubled the budget. Still, it's quite limited, but we have a good probability of getting through at the Council. We will have a meeting at the end of March with the Research Working Party on atomic question. There is also a difficult equilibrium between fission and fusion, as many of you know. This morning, Madame Vilmès, the former Belgian Prime Minister, Vice President of the European Parliament, just gave a nice interview in La Libre Belgique concerning the importance of a future SMR and advanced modular reactors that we will be able to speak in a few minutes about it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. André?
Thank you very much, Malvina and Irina for the invitation to this event. There were a lot said by Camille and Domenico. What I wanted to say, first of all, something about Nuclear Europe is the trade association for the nuclear industry at the European level. And I have to say that talking about the wind of change, we recently have new members, the Polish Industrial Association, but also the German one. So Germany is back, let's say, in business. And in my organization, as Mr. Tonin also mentioned, we are not looking only at SMR. We see SMR as a complementary technology for the large reactors. When we are talking about large reactors, we are talking about new build, but also lifetime extension, which is very, very important. I mean, the existing fleet, it's a very important asset these days. And I wanted to make a joke at your question regarding the views on SMRs. From the political level, we are saying that they are easier accepted because they don't contain the nuclear in the title, you know. So, yeah, coming back to SMRs and our work, as Malvina said, I'm representing the Secretariat of the European Industrial Alliance on SMRs. And in this alliance, we are partnering with the European Commission and SNETP, so the research community as well. First of all, I have to say that the work on SMRs didn't start it really in 2024 when the alliance was launched. Even before, we had the European SMR pre-partnership that was launched in 2021, where together with the European Commission, but also SNETP and ENSREG, we were partnering in starting to look at this topic. In the pre-partnership, there was also ENSREG, the association of the group of the regulators, because we were looking very much on the different aspects related to the regulatory regime in the different member states. Well, for the alliance, now having a different purpose, ENSREG is not anymore partner, but it's an observer, so we are closely working with the regulator, still working with the regulator, because this is one of let's say, the challenges that were raised during the discussions. And the last thing that I wanted to say, of course, it's about the strategy. I think that it's a very important step, it's a very important document. It relies a lot on the strategic action plan released in September by the European Industrial Alliance on SMRs. This strategic action plan is for the next 5 years, so 2025-2029, and we are looking very much on the different challenges that the deployment of SMRs is having, but also how to overcome those challenges in the technical working groups of the Alliance, but also in the project working groups of the Alliance. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Łukasz, take the floor.
So thank you, Malvina, and thank you for the invitation to this meeting. I want to start with a simple observation and a question. So we are living in an extraordinary moment for nuclear. Energy security is back at the top of the political agenda, and the clean energy transition is accelerating. And small modular technology that was considered futuristic a decade ago are now subject to an EU strategy, acceleration strategy. And a room of policymakers here in Brussels on a Tuesday morning is itself remarkable progress. Well, here is a question that I want to put in this room. Are we moving fast enough? So because the gap between political agenda, ambition and regulatory reality is still enormous, and it is not primarily a technology gap. The technology is ready, the designs are ready, the investors are ready, but what is lagging behind is the legal and regulatory infrastructure needed to deploy that technology at a scale, at speed, and across borders. And there was a reference to Scorpion, so I felt a bit under pressure to come up with my own reference to classics. So Beatles once said, you say you want a revolution. In nuclear regulation, we don't need a revolution, we need an evolution. But we are not waiting for better reactors, we are waiting for better law. So I come to this discussion with a specific angle. I'm a lawyer, a former head of the Polish nuclear regulator in Poland, and the chief permitting and licensing officer at Polish Nuclear Power Plants Company. So a country that has made significant progress as for political agenda and putting nuclear on this political agenda and the future energy mix. And what I have found through work on the Polish legislative framework, through engagement with the IEA and HSI initiative, and then through conversations with regulators across Europe, is that single most powerful tool we are not yet using properly is a concept of reliance. So reliance is not a new idea, it is a borrowed idea, borrowed from medicines, from pharmaceutical regulation, from aviation, from every sector that has successfully globalized its safety frameworks, and it is time nuclear caught up. So reliance means that a national regulator, full sovereign, full accountable, is legally empowered to take into account and give significant weight to assessments already performed by another trusted regulatory authority, rather than repeating that work from scratch. So it is not lowering standards. It is not outsourcing decisions. It is focusing scarce expert resources where they matter most, so on what is genuinely local, site-specific and new. So physics does not change at the border. It is now our time to reflect in law. And in the next couple of minutes, I hope the discussion will be able to speak about 3 different things: whether the cooperation tools at the EU SMR strategy are sufficient, whether there are really legal barriers to streamline licensing, and what are these legal barriers, and what mutual recognition can realistically look like, because the technology is 21st century and we are still, I think, trying to license with a 20th regulatory mindset. So we have spent years on discussing what is harmonization and standardization, and as we are moving closer to actual deployment, we face a hard truth. Full harmonization is still a distant horizon. We cannot wait for identical codes to license these reactors. If we do, we will miss the window for SMRs entirely. So my argument is today simple. We need to move from treating international cooperation as a nice-to-have learning exercise, and joint early reviews are indeed a nice-to-have learning exercise. And I was a big advocate for joint early reviews when the first groups were created between the Polish regulator, US NRC regulator, CNSC, and UKO. And now I was one of those regulators that had the first discussions around joint early reviews. But I had to review my statement and my thinking about it, because we need to embed a more hard law solution directly into our national statutes to bridge the gap between the international cooperation and sovereign decision making. Thank you.
Thank you very much to all the panelists for your opening statements. I venture to say that they have stretched a bit over the 2-3 minutes, like the SMR construction schedules are bound to stretch. So just taking a lesson from that. I'll turn to coming to you first. Reflecting again on the SMR communication that has been published, the collaboration and the coordination is kind of recurring theme that is necessary to kind of realize the benefits of the SMRs in full. I wanted to ask you if you could kind of reflect on what needs to be in place to realistically make this happen in the European space. Like, what is the role of the European Commission, and should there be some additional vehicle to help to kind of get the SMRs coordination in motion?
Yeah, thank you, Marina. Well, first of all, I would like to react on the timelines for the construction of SMRs. Well, it remains to be seen, I think, because a lot of them are on the drawing board. Okay, some of them are already in construction or have been constructed outside of the Western world. But I think in our environment, it remains to be seen. Now, to your question, well, the economies of scale, of course, for SMRs are important, and they can be achieved only through a fleet approach, meaning that we can deploy multiple designs in multiple jurisdictions, so several member states. Nowadays, there are many competing designs. I mean, Domenico was saying 20. I have seen the latest NEA database of SMRs. I think it's more than 100. But of course they cover both light water and advanced modular reactors. So in this stage, when we are developing an emerging technology, I think this is good. It's desirable to have actually choice and multiple, but at the end, yeah, if these concepts are developed in isolation, it's indeed completely separate licensing processes. The benefits of the modularity and serial production will be difficult to realize. So this is why we indeed in the strategy emphasize strongly the coordination and that on several dimensions. As we already discussed, we encourage the member states, the industry alliance, to gradually converge around a limited number of promising designs. And the corresponding will also strengthen the related European supply chain. It will just be more easier to build actually robust demand around these reactor designs and fewer designs which appear most promising. Secondly, we also mentioned already that we promote development of the industrial standards and module manufacturing. Again, these are essential preconditions for serial production and for the reduction of the cost. And thirdly, we encourage closer coordination among the member states, and this specifically includes the cooperation among the national safety authorities. Maybe before they can go to the mutual recognition of the licensing decisions, of course, the stage of the early joint review is already ongoing, and I think this can be built on. There can be also cooperation on the shared technical assessments, which could help then to save resources and avoid unnecessary duplication. And indeed, in ESREC, there is already a task force which is working on such a regulatory cooperation, now in a pre-licensing phase. And in the strategy, we are envisaging that this task force could potentially actually evolve into the regulatory coalition of PINC, which could even lead ultimately to possible mutual recognition of the others' licensing decisions. And you also ask about the Commission role. So what we are doing? Well, we are facilitating. We are working together, Andre mentioned, with the industry and other stakeholders in the Industry Alliance. We are providing platforms for this regulatory cooperation. We have also established some of the EU de-risking instruments we discuss, and on the regulatory cooperation, we have also grant scheme, and this is specifically for the common safety assessments, for the early joint reviews, and we will continue that financial support to the regulators as well.
Fantastic, thank you very much. I'll turn to you, Andre, now to ask you about the down selection or prioritization of the projects within the SMR Alliance. Could you elaborate on how this could be done, or how will this be done in the near future?
So in the Alliance we have following a call from 2024, so after it was launched, the Alliance released this call for projects, and we identified 9 projects that were fulfilling the criteria set in the TOR, or terms of reference of the Alliance. And yes, we see that some of the projects were already collaborating from the beginning, like city heat for district heating technologies, Calogena and steady energy. But I think that it's important, this kind of collaboration on similar technologies, and we saw a recent announcement between a collaboration between other 2 projects that are part of the Alliance, Eagles and Nuclear. So I think that this kind of collaboration, let's say prioritization on the technologies started. At one point we will have also the second call for projects, and all these projects are supported by the Alliance, by the work of the technical working groups in different aspects, which can also help in this prioritization.
A quick follow-up. That sounds like more projects, not less.
Yes, I mean, we have to keep in mind that the main scope of the alliance is to support the development and deployment of SMRs, AMRs in EU in the early 2030s. So we are keeping in mind, and how to say, we cannot limit the willingness of the different developers to be in this, I would say, competition to achieve the main goal of the alliance. So.
That's clear, thank you. Okay, so turning to Domenico, I have a question to you about the kind of more innovative technologies, the AMRs. One of the passages in the SMR communication mentioned and encouraged the technology developers leaning into the Joint Research Center nuclear facilities and potentially adding more test facilities to kind of help to bring these technologies quicker to market. Right now, there's quite a number of different AMRs under consideration. They all have different fuels and coolants and pressures, etc. So these facilities will look differently. I was wondering if you could reflect on how should these be prioritized, thinking about the business opportunity within the bloc and globally.
Thank you, Marwina. Let me just go back to the previous session. Camille mentioned all the potential use of SMR. To be honest, I've worked a lot in the past with energy-intensive industries. One of the most difficult things is to decarbonize very high heat processes in the chemical industry, in the steel industry, in the glass industry. I feel that that's where SMR could have, I will not say a niche market, but something very special there if we want to be serious about decarbonization of energy-intensive industry. Either we delocalize, either we close it, either we try to use SMR to decarbonize this heat process. The same apply also for lower temperature for the district heating. I feel that in many places, and we have several projects with the Finnish, for example, or with the Czech, how to decarbonize district heating. That's, I feel, where you have a special market for SMR. Obviously for electricity, obviously for other applications, but my feeling is really, and we should give a little bit more visibility to SMR for decarbonizing heat process at medium-low temperature for district heating or medium-high temperature for industrial processes. Now, to go back to your question about the GRC facilities, let me say that the GRC has some unique facilities. If you visit the GRC in Karlsruhe, for example, or in Petten or in Gale, you can see that some technologies can be supported by the GRC. Just to give you an example, on the molten salt reactors, that's why probably if you go in Karlsruhe, you can have some very specific advantages. I would like not to isolate the GRC facilities versus the other nuclear facilities. We are funding through the Euratom Research and Training Program. The last figure that I had was 238 nuclear facilities in the offer initiative. I feel that the GRC, with its own unique facilities plus the offer, what we are providing is open access to this nuclear research infrastructure. And in the next 2 days, we will adopt the work program 26-27, and you will see also the possibility. Maybe if we close the other microphone, it's better for the noise. We will have the opportunities to continue funding this offer, OFERR initiative, and also we never have sufficient talents in the sector. The HR issue in nuclear is a major problem. And also there, through the NN, European Nuclear Education Network, through the establishment of a real academy, nuclear academy, we expect to attract more young people, more women to the nuclear sector. And this is to be adopted and published in a couple of days. Thank you.
Fantastic. And a quick follow-up, just thinking about what you mentioned in your opening statement about doubling the budget of Euratom for fission. Would you have any kind of immediate suggestions for where should these additional funds be allocated?
We need to have the highest safety standards in Europe. We know that in some other parts of the world, there are discussions in order, I will not say to weaken the safety standards, but in order to accelerate the process, to make the regulators more, in French we say, plus conciliant, more conciliant in English. I'm sure that some French speakers will be able to translate that, to be a little bit less strict on the safety rules. What we want is that through Euratom, we want to be sure that the TSO and the regulators have the best possible information on whatever SMR is built in Europe. I feel that's one important element. When you speak about new facility, even a new research facility, you probably know now the most recent reactors that is built in terms of research is the Jules Horowitz reactor. The cost, it's between 4 and 5 billion euro for having in Cadarache, now the Jules Horowitz reactor. That means these costs are really beyond our capacity. We are dealing with Euratom. Instead of getting 50 million euro per year, we expect to go at 100 million, but that's not the money that you need for such a purpose. It was mentioned before, the IPCI that is on discussion, the important project of common European interest, it's certainly an avenue. The guarantee funding, what we mentioned about the 200 million euro that Mr. Tonin mentioned, it's also an avenue. We are also building bridges between Euratom and the future ECF, the European Competitiveness Fund. It's not always easy because we have two different legal bases. We have the Euratom Treaty and there is the TFEU, but we expect with the support of the legal service and the horizontal services, Euratom is a lex specialis. That means if something is planned in the Euratom Treaty has the priority. If it's not in the Euratom Treaty, we can use other instruments. Just to give you an example, you read line by line the Euratom Treaty, the term competitiveness never appears. That means in my basic legal interpretation, because it never appears, automatically we should be able to use the ECF. But this is a political discussion at the Council mostly, because Euratom is mostly in the hands, and at the Parliament for the budgetary reason. And we hope to have the support, Mr. Tonin, support of Mrs. Wilmès and the different other parties in order to make these bridges between nuclear technologies and ECF a reality.
Thank you very much. Okay, turning to Łukasz. You have set up the concept of mutual recognition very well in your opening remarks. You have mentioned kind of 3 questions that should be answered. Could you elaborate a little bit on some of them in, let's say, 3 minutes?
I'll try. So first of all, the strategy calls for cooperation between national regulators and mentions tools such as sandboxes or early joint reviews. So they are necessary but not sufficient on their own. The missing link is the hard law. So joint early reviews tell us we agree on safety. The laws must now tell regulators that they are allowed to act on that agreement. So we need to legalize the use of this data, not just to share it, because this is just merely an exercise between regulators where they share specific thoughts or specific data, and they conduct together maybe an assessment on part of this assessment, but they do not have a legal mandate to use them during their own licensing procedures. So they have again and again to repeat the assessment. So and about sandboxes, I have given it much thought, but sandboxes in this respect are a good place to play, but you cannot build a nuclear fleet in a sandbox. I was a bit surprised about reference to sandboxes in the strategy, because what are these sandboxes? In principle, they are controlled environments where technologies or business models can be tested under real market conditions with a temporarily relaxed or adapted regulatory framework, allowing regulators and developers to learn together before permanent rules are written. So the concept is appealing in theory: create a safe space for innovation, reduce red tape, accelerate deployment. But the problem with applying this to nuclear fleet SMR is fundamental. Nuclear safety regulation cannot be temporarily relaxed. So you cannot run a nuclear reactor in a beta mode. This means that in the nuclear context, sandboxes can at best serve as pre-licensing dialogue forums. So we lack a statutory fast track that formally recognizes these foreign outputs during joint early reviews as valid evidence in a domestic administrative procedure. So we need a waiver mechanism to avoid duplication of efforts, to leverage assessments and analysis conducted by other regulators or TSOs of these regulators. So the lesson from New World Joint Early Review, from BWX 300 Joint Early Review is simple. We agree on safety, but we disagree on syntax. And we need a legal mechanism to manage these divergences. So most national frameworks mandate that regulators review every bold and every calculation from scratch, treating each project as if it is the first one ever built. So our regulators need hard law, statutory mandates that allow them to act on the guidance without fear of a legal challenge. Reliance is a legal mechanism. It is what a national regulator does after that joint review or after any trusted foreign assessment when it comes to making its own domestic licensing decision. It is the statutory authority to say, because of what was established in that joint review or by the USNRC or by STUK, I will treat those findings as valid evidence. I will not repeat the underlying assessment. Mostly and specifically, this is about non-site specific assessment, so that the regulator can focus on what matters most about local site specific issues covered by the construction license application. So in simple terms, joint early reviews the input, but the reliance mechanism is the legal power to use that input. So, but this is not about outsourcing independence. Reliance means trust the assessment, but own the decision. So, again, we want to license a 21st century technology with a 20th century regulatory mindset, and that is the single greatest barrier we face. The barriers are structural, legal, technical, and cultural, but they are all solvable.
Thank you very much. I would love to probe some more questions in the lunch break. But now I would like to turn to Andrei and ask a question that I think is nearly, well, I believe really difficult to answer, but I wonder if with your hat from Nuclear Europe you could perhaps help us to understand kind of how to effectively move from first of a kind to nth of a kind in Europe, and what kind of tools are necessary to get there.
Indeed, difficult question, because yes, we are waiting for the first of a kind, and then we want to see how it will happen with the n of a kind. There are some aspects that we have to take into account, and we already started to look at in the alliance, in the different technical working groups. Of course, supply chain and workforce, it's very important. That would be also the base, or it will impact a lot the n of a kind decision. Modularization, this new feature, how it will happen, will it be built on site, will it be built in a factory, and so on. And I think that very important is the financing aspect. And it's the order book that you were talking about. I think that it's very important. I mean, the signals are very important in order to move from first of a kind to N of a kind. Of course, as Lukáš was highlighting, I think that, well, after the first of a kind, we will solve some issues, regulatory aspects. And by the way, talking about the regulatory aspects, is not only about regulators and the way they are doing things, but also the discussion, the early discussion with the industry. I think that it's very important. And for example, we have the licensing group, which is also looking at this. So there is no straight answer, as you already expected. But yes, let's have the first of a kind. And meanwhile, also to look at aspects that can impact the N of a kind.
Thank you so much. And I think it's really important as we bring these first of a kinds to markets that we also understand and expect that they will not be perhaps a most economical proposition. We should expect them to be expensive and take a long time. And the trick is in following through, right? Moving from this first of a kind and all of the lessons being applied then to lower the costs and get to Nth of a kind cost curve place. So I could talk all day with you guys. A lot of interesting expertise here are on this table, but I would love to give an opportunity to everybody in this room to have a bit more of an informal conversation. So I would like to ask the recording and the stream to be turned off now.